So the instability and the inequality that have been long-term problems are not getting any better. And so this is a difficult, very difficult period of American economic history. And I only hope that our friends around the world understand that, rather than imagining that the United States is comfortably in the driver's seat globally the way it was for the second half of the 20th century.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. I guess a lot of people would maybe push back and say the United States is the best. It's the best shirt out of the bunch. You know, the economy seems to be growing. As you said, there's lots of inequality globally, but it seems like the U.S. economy is strong. Would you agree with that statement?
No. Basically, I think that's a carefully cultivated process that psychologists would call denial. Yes, if we compare ourselves with some of your countries in Europe and elsewhere, of course. And we do have the legacy of having been the top of the American empire for most of the last century. But in point of fact, we are a smaller player in the world today. I'll just give you one of the many factors that lead me to answer no to your question. The G7, the United States and its major allies, now account for about 29% of global GDP. China and its allies now account for about 34% of global GDP. The numbers are rough, and all these measurements are, but they are revolutionary. The United States and its allies are no longer the player in the world, the dominant, who is so dominant that everybody else is a marginal footnote. That's over. China and its allies are now major players. And I would argue that every country on earth, including the United States, is in a process of trying to figure out how to adjust to this sea change in global economic life. And the United States, for example, the Republican Party, which, if the polls are to be believed, will win the presidential election with Mr. Trump this November. The Republican Party just announced in its document, its platform, that it is going to raise tariffs on everybody in the world, 10%, and then 30% on top of that for the Chinese. That's a very serious thing. I understand platforms are just words, and they're not often governing what actually happens later. But they do give you a good idea of where at least a sizable part of the business community's heads are. They are for decoupling from China. They are for go it alone. They are for a radical realteration of global supply chains and all that implies. I think these are extraordinary decisions made by a major party. If Mr. Trump wins and he does some or all of these things, it is going to affect every business probably in the world in ways that it is difficult to foretell, especially when you understand the interconnections of businesses, so that what one business does to adjust will in turn affect how every other one does it, and so on. I would argue that we are in a very, very difficult position.